Hi, I am doing a mini series on mental health, mental wellness, and how the Word of God relates, supports our mental health. The first talk I gave was on Proverbs 4:23. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it comes the issues of life. And we looked at the Hebrew definitions of these words, and the Hebrew, that's the original language, the Hebrew definition for heart was inner man. And I talked about what makes up the inner man, and the first one I mentioned was the mind. And the inner man is like the core, our core. Who are we? What makes up who we are? And our mind is a command center. So if you're a Star Trek fan, it's that place where they're looking forward and they have all the controls, and it controls everything on the Star Enterprise. If you're more of a computer person, your brain is like the computer that controls everything that happens in your body. So you have your brain and your spinal cord, which is your central nervous system, and then you have like periphery nervous system, which sends neurons and synapses and create literal tracks in your brain. That's why we can get stuck on a certain way of thinking, because we literally have tracks in our brain of lines of thinking. And I'm going to show you today how you can break negative lines of thinking. So, as our brain is really the most important part of our body, in the sense that it controls everything, it is going to be very, very important for us to be very aware, very conscious, and very intentional on what we allow to fill our brain. I'm sure you have all heard garbage in, garbage out. What do we want to put in our brains to have a healthy mental awareness, a successful life, a happy life? And it's the Word of God. The Word of God truly is the only power, is the only thing that has that power to change our life. So what we allow in our brain affects every part of who we are. I like to tell people to hang around your fans, and hang around the people who are going to tell you the truth. You may not initially like it. It may be slightly painful, but it is going to be healthy for you. So there's a couple verses I want to share, and one of them is, and this is in regards to the Word of God controlling us, controlling our mind, or submitting to the Word of God, because something is going to control our mind. We get to choose that. You get to choose what controls your mind. All right, so Romans 12:1, it says, I beseech you, I beg you, by the mercies of God, to offer up your lives a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to the Lord, which is your service. So this is Paul, and he's writing, and he's saying, I beg you, please, please, present your lives, present your bodies, present your mind as a living sacrifice. Be intentional on what you allow to control your mind. We pretty much sacrifice our life to something, right? We can sacrifice it to garbage. We can sacrifice our life or our mind to a certain field of study, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what are we going to allow to control our mind? And Paul is saying, I beg you, give yourselves to God. I beg you, which is your spiritual service. So the next verse I want to share is 1 Corinthians 2:16, and it says, For who has known the mind of the Lord, that we can instruct him? We can't instruct God, but we can have the mind of Christ. We can have the mind of Christ. And how do we do that? You know, we have to be in a place where we're hearing the Word of God. And we can hear the Word of God. There's many different ways. I'm going over 5 minutes. Your own reading, like a Bible study. There's a lot of like music groups that sing Christian songs that have like the Word of God and truth in it. That's really important. So when we submit our brains to the Word of God, we literally have the power to change those tracks, those negative lines of thinking, by submitting our brain to the Word of God. I feel like we need a whole nother session just to talk about that, because that's just so powerful and packed and loaded. But that is part 2 on mental wellness and how it relates to the Word of God.